All right, it's 8:30. No jobs report today, but we have something better. We want to bring in our Steve Leisman and Chicago Fed President Austan Goolsbee. Steve.
I don't know about me being better, but Austan certainly has the potential here. Austan, thanks for joining us. Austan Goolsbee, Chicago Fed President. Austan, it's 8:30, 3:38, 39, and we don't have the jobs report. I want to know how confident you feel right now that you know what's going on in the U.S. economy.
Well, I will say two things. One, it's the first Friday of the month. We're sitting here on the quietest jobs day. So something's wrong with the universe. We didn't get the final countdown walk-on music. And so the Chicago Fed, not because we knew there was going to be a government shutdown, we didn't, but because we've been trying to get better real-time measures of what's happening in the job market. We've recently rolled out the Chicago Fed labor market indicators, and one of those indicators, we turn to 11 different data sources. We take the official data plus high-quality private sector sources, and one of the numbers that we keep is a real-time estimate of what will be the unemployment rate. So barring getting an actual unemployment rate, we released yesterday that the unemployment rate would have been announced to be 4.3%. That is unchanged and stay where it is.
Austan, I looked at that data and your methodology there, and it looks a little bit like you're California sober on that, in the sense that you have not really forsworn the official data. A lot of it's based on the official data. So it seems like we're kind of cool in knowing
I totally agree.
Yeah, it's kind of cool in knowing what today might have been, but we don't know about, let's say, next week when we don't get jobless claims, although we are getting some state-level stuff. Goldman Sachs came out with a report this morning estimating that in the absence of two states, they think it would have been 224,000. But isn't it right, as time goes by, we lose contact with what we think is the reality? As time goes by,
it will get worse. There's no question the best jobs data in the world come from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We need that data. We want that data. We can use what we have, which are private sector sources. We can look at the state unemployment claims and plug those into the formula. Over time, exactly as you say, Steve, it's going to get farther and farther from the truth. Even the private sector sources rely on the BLS data to kind of normalize and make their samples representative. But we fight with the army we have. At moments like this, where it's critically important that we're figuring out whether the economy's in a moment of transition, this is what we have. And thus far, it still continues to point to a pretty stable labor market, in my view.
So does that keep you on the trajectory you were on? I'm trying to think, and I don't love this metaphor because I don't even watch anything about planes and problems, but you know, you're at 36,000 feet. You're cruising at 562 miles an hour with some kind of tailwind, whatever you want to call it. And one of your screens goes out. Do you keep on the same trajectory, which right now the market believes is to cut interest rates?
Well, look, you know that Paul Volcker used to tell me our job at the Fed is to act, and the market's job is to react, and let's not get the order mixed up. So what the market expects is not in the Fed's mandate. What should be in the decision of the Fed are the economic conditions, unemployment and inflation. That raises the degree of difficulty when we cover up one of the eyes or put a screen where you can't see the data. I think everyone on the FOMC has to come to their own determination of what does it mean for the trajectory. As you know, before we got into some of the dust in the air, I believe that the underlying economy rates can afford to come down over time in a gradual basis, a fair amount from where they are now. But this uptick of inflation that we've been seeing, coupled with the payroll jobs numbers deteriorating, have put the central bank in a bit of a sticky spot where you're getting deterioration of both sides of the mandate at the same time. If the inflation looks like it's going to be transitory, and I say that word with some fear, then I think the employment side of the mandate would be dominant. But with that, you see this uptick in inflation, and particularly the uptick in services inflation, which is probably not coming from tariffs. I'm a little wary about front-loading too many rate cuts and just counting on the inflation going away.
On Wednesday, Austin, we heard from ADP, and something with the overall revisions of the BLS was used to sort of explain why it was such a big miss on ADP in the private sector payroll. Did you hear that? Can you explain that? Was it a big miss? Was it as bad as it looked, or was it just catching up with the revisions that the BLS numbers had already told us?
Yeah, and now we can't ask folks at the BLS because we got a government shutdown. I don't want to weigh in on the revisions, except to say the BLS is the best data in the world, period. And all data, private sector and public sector data, because people don't like answering surveys and the response rate is falling, we're going to get bigger revisions. There's going to be more noise in all the data series. So the fact that we're in a moment where on immigration and on labor force participation, we've got some question marks that we don't know, mean that people should be wary over-indexing on monthly aggregates, which includes BLS payroll numbers. It includes ADP. If you over-index on that as a measure of the business cycle, you could make a big mistake. We saw that in 2023 and 2024 when we were getting very big monthly job growth numbers, and it wasn't a sign that the economy was overheating. It wasn't a sign of massive growth rates. It was a sign that population was changing in a way that we didn't understand.
Do you have a dog analogy? You got it. You only got two. Is that the sum total of your? You just. How about
Look,
this? Did you hear this one?
Dogs. It's always the same analogy. But one of the key rules of the data dogs is sniff every piece of data that hits the kitchen floor because it might be food.
How about this? Have you heard this? If you want to run with the big dogs, you got to learn how to pee in the tall grass. You ever heard that one?
You the tall grass?
No, I'm not going to let you get me in trouble again, Joe.
That's a good one, isn't it? Think about that. You cannot, if you're a little dog, you cannot.
Austin, I got a question for you. And here's another analogy that we get back to. We have heard the analogy that from Jay Powell that this could be like driving a car in the fog, and when that happens, you slow down and wait to see what's going on. What you just described sounds like you're driving in the fog in the car and not really clear about what's ahead. Does that mean you'd be inclined to slow down or stay the path?
I do think that if you got dust in the air, if you got fog, a lot of times you might slow down. And the fundamental thing is we got to figure out the through line. You'd feel better driving in the fog if the road is straight, and you know that. Right. With these wrinkles coming from inflation, I think it behooves us, just as we said in the monetary policy framework, if both sides of the mandate are slowly deteriorating at the same time, we said we're going to look at how big the misses are on each side and how persistent we think they're going to be.
Can I want to interrupt here for a second, which is that Austin is pointing to something that maybe the market doesn't understand.
Yeah, what's that?
You're about to not get the inflation data, too.
Right.
Right.
And the other thing I want to do is just...
It's not that both sides of the ledger
you're going to have
worse. You're not
fog on both sides. You don't know about the other thing. I want to make one political point, if I could.
Oh, boy.
Which is this. Austin is also pointing out the following. The private sector has not, and I believe cannot, step in to replace the massive measures that the government produces when it comes to the jobs report, trying to figure out the net monthly change in 160 million jobs in this country. And the private sector cannot and has not stepped in yet. There's other data out there, but Austin also pointed out almost all of it is re-benchmarked to the numbers that come from the government. Austin, I'm sorry to just take your time on that, but I want to make that point.
Look, that's
that
true.
At the end of the
I don't consider that a political statement. That's not a political. Those are just statements of fact that the longer we go without the official statistics, the more blind we're going to be of what's happening in the economy. And there are more private sector observations that we can get on the job market than there are on inflation. That makes me nervous. We don't get a lot of ADP equivalence estimates of the actual prices. There are a few, but not a lot.
Hey, Austan, I have maybe a 30,000-foot question. We were just talking to the CEO of Perplexity about AI, and we've been watching all of these transactions with, NVIDIA taking a stake in OpenAI, and there have been all of these questions about whether the folks who are effectively buying or committing to buy chips that will ultimately build all these data centers, which are powering so much of this economy right now, ultimately can afford to do it. How do you even think about that?
I mean, we think about it from the Fed on the how does it affect employment or how does it affect prices? It could affect both, but that feels like a longer run version. If it's raising the productivity growth rate, and you saw him discussing that if they could raise productivity growth in services, that'd be a tremendous boon to the overall GDP, and I agree with that. In the short run, some of the most interest rate sensitive sectors include exactly the things like business fixed investment, where they're booming. They're not going down. You'd think if we were extra restrictive and you were nervous that was going to cause a recession, you'd look at it, interest rate sensitive sectors like the canary in the coal mine. But if you look at data centers, they're booming. We should think about what happens if the growth rate of AI is not as large as its biggest proponents think. Might we get over our skis a bit with overinvestment and have to clean up if there were a bubble? I think we do want to think about that topic.
Austan, thank you for joining us this morning, and we'll leave to later the discussion of a big dog, small dog, walking in tall grass or short grass. But we appreciate your joining us.
Sounds like you don't want to go out in Joe's dog's lawn.
No, I don't want to go there, and I didn't get back the time that he took to discuss that.
I'm going to take some more. So,
no.
No, but you are so folksy. Have you ever copped to being born in Waco? Have you copped
to that
ever?
What do you mean, to being born in Waco? What does that mean?
Well,
you don't think I was born in Waco?
No, I do. Just, the whole, Chicago, I'm so highbrow. This is the whole, the big city, thing that you're pulling off now.
Austin's always been a man of the people.
You grew up in Whittier, too.
Stick up for me, Becky. Where are you going with this, Joe? You think I'm a snob?
No, because you're very folksy. Like Dan, I said,
that's why he's so
right. That's why he's so folksy and relatable. And one of our favorites. Now that you're, can't say the things you really want to say.
I think he's doing pretty good.
He does,
what he wants,
but he never takes it down that horrible path he used to.
That you
remember?
try and drag him down?
Yeah, I still do. See you.
Good job, Austan.
See you, Austan. Thank you, sir.